And thank you to everyone for being here today. My name is Liu Mancho Kwaera, speaking on behalf of the campaigns to elect Eritha Akile Cainion for District 6 City Council and Jesse Nevel for Mayor of St. Petersburg. And I am also the local president of the International People's Democratic Uhuru Movements. Today, we are gathered here to salute the families of Jimmy Goshi, Desiree Thomas, and Keontae Brown, as well as Ashanti Butler, Dominique Battle, Lanaya Miller, Laborio Felton, and all of the Africans who have been murdered by the Pinellas County Sheriff's Department and the St. Petersburg Police. We chose to hold this press conference here in front of the Florida Holocaust Museum because the Black community is facing genocide right here in this city, but there's a Holocaust Museum for the Jewish people who face crimes in Europe.
That's right.
We believe that it is important to expose the conditions that we are facing here in St. Petersburg, and it is directly aligned with the United Nations definition of genocide, a crime punishable according to international law. Despite the centuries of enslavement of African people and genocide against the indigenous people of this land by Europeans, the word genocide did not even enter the English vocabulary until it was coined in 1944 in response to the Nazi government's persecution of European white Jews. But the genocide against African people is ongoing. If you look at the reality of Black people in America today, the condition of existence fits every aspect of the definition of genocide and fit the punishable acts of genocide as defined by the UN Convention. In 1946, the General Assembly of the United Nations gave this definition of crime to genocide. Genocide is a denial of the right to existence of an entire human group, as homicide is the denial of the right to live of individual human beings. Such denial of the right of existence shocks the conscience of mankind, results in great losses to humanity in the form of cultural and other contributions represented by these human groups. And it is contrary to moral law and to the spirit and aims of the United Nations. Article 2 of the United Nations Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crimes of Genocide, adopted in December of 1948, states that in the present convention, genocide means any of the following acts committed with intent to destroy, in whole or in part, a national, ethnical, racial, or religious group as such, killing members of the group, causing serious bodily or mental harm to members of the group, deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or in parts, imposing measures intended to prevent births within the group, or forcibly transferring children of the group to another group. Now that last point in particular hits close to home here in Pinellas County, where 8 Black families in the last year alone have been forced to bury their children, and where countless others have had to watch their children ripped away from them and thrown into prison cages on trumped up felony charges for things that white children would never get arrested for. That's why we're here.
That's right.
That's why we're here. And we have been in contact with the families who have lost their sons last weekend, and they will not be speaking to the press. But we will be letting the press know when we will make statements with those families very soon. So today we have community leaders who are going to speak to us today, and that first person is going to be Eritha Akile Cainion, the next District 6 City Councilwoman. Everybody give her a round of applause. Woo!
Uhuru, and good afternoon. I'd first like to start this off by appreciating those who, in light of this tragedy, support those who have been murdered. My name is Eritha Akile Cainion, candidate for District 6 City Council. And yes, I say it boldly, what happened to Desiree Thomas, Jimmy Goshi, and Keontae Brown on the early morning of August 6th in Palm Harbor was murder on behalf of the notorious killer, Pinellas County Sheriff's Department. And I don't need white corporate media such as the Tampa Bay Times to validate that for me. I know it was murder. I knew it when I first heard the reports before they had even released the boys' information, because the famous Gaultieri slander machine was already in motion. The Sheriff's Department, along with the vicious, slanderous, offensive, oppressive white media, was releasing criminal records before we can even know the names of the victims. Bob Gaultieri held a press conference criminalizing those children, saying that they were responsible for the thefts in Palm Harbor despite having no evidence of that information. He also conducted a press conference with the mugshots of all of those children, despite saying he would get rid of that practice when it was in the case of white juveniles being charged for crimes. So why would the Sheriff's Department and the media immediately begin to pump out this type of information that serves to dehumanize and devalue the lives of 3 teenage black boys? It's simple. People respond like that when they are in the process of covering up a crime that has been committed. It's to garner the support of a narrative that would serve to victimize criminals and criminalize the victims. The victims in this case being Desiree, Jimmy, and Keontae. The victims being the other 3 boys that were also attacked on the morning of August 6th, to which Sheriff Bob Gaultieri is now saying that they should be charged for murder. I know it was murder because just last year, on March 31st, 2016, Pinellas County Sheriff's deputies murdered by drowning 3 teenage black girls, Dominique Battle, Lanaya Miller, and Ashanti Butler. The girls were followed at first by Deputy Howard Skaggs for allegedly not having headlights on, despite video footage disproving that. He got behind the girls with his headlights off. This is a part of the second chase policy. He followed them while radioing his superiors for permission to pursue a chase of the girls. His superiors turned that request down, saying to call off the chase. Howard Skaggs then decides to engage in his own chase, calling in the DUI task force, or otherwise known as the Wolf Pack, to take it on. Skaggs ordered deputies to block any exits where the girls could escape and corralled them into a cemetery in which he was very familiar, having done multiple stakeouts and arrests from this area, to which he bragged about via radio to the deputies, preparing the no-exit strategy that would then trap the girls. Deputies lined the scene as Skaggs menacingly chased the girls and pushed them into the pond, sending them 15 feet from shore. There were 17 trained first responding deputies at the scene, yet none of them acted with urgency. None of them jumped into the water. Some even stood off to the side, engaged in cynical discussion of whether or not screaming could be heard, and in response, a deputy says, "Not anymore, dude. They're effing done." This murder also resembles that of another that took place in December of 2002, where the same Deputy Howard Skaggs, along with Deputy Vickers, illegally pursued 18-year-old black teen Laborio Felton. And his legal rights, Laborio went around a DUI checkpoint, and Skaggs insisted on chasing him. The deputies chased Laborio on foot into a pond, along with a canine. Laborio's body was uncovered with dirt and grass lodged within his lungs, and half of his brain collapsed. This murder was ruled as a justifiable homicide, and Skaggs was defended by Bob Gaultieri. So the murders of black teenagers by the Sheriff's Department is not a conspiracy. It is their history, and it is genocide. That's right. I am the international chair of the Justice for the 3 Drowned Black Girls campaign, and this has been my work since before entering this election. And it was while chairing this campaign that I saw the same response from the Sheriff's Department and the media. I saw the slander of the girls, their parents, and the black community as a whole. I saw the stolen car line to justify the deaths of black teenagers. There were lies upon lies spewed from killer Bob Gaultieri around the chase. There was no chase despite his cruiser going 93 miles per hour. Similar to the case now, where they're saying there were no chase of the 3 boys, despite proof, evidence, saying recording cars going up to 80 miles per hour and appearing 0.8 seconds of the crash. I say it's murder because of a social system, a country with a state apparatus built upon the enslavement of African people and the genocide of the indigenous people. The state, in the form of the police, formed to maintain the system, the status quo of the oppression of the murders of the black community formed to protect the white community from the poor and colonized black community. It's a system that myself for District 6 and Jesse Nevel for mayor are going up against, along with the tired people of this city, because until a revolution happens, there will continue to be countless murders of black children at the hands of the police. Without reparations to the black community, my community will continue to suffer the worst forms of oppression, from police murder, to gentrification, to poverty, to homelessness. People keep asking, is St. Petersburg, a majority white city, really ready for reparations to the black community? Is the city of St. Petersburg really ready for a revolution? Not only are we ready, but we have absolutely no choice but to be. Should we be forced to be ready for Rick Boxcutter Baker or Rick Sewage Dumper Kreisman? Should we be forced to prepare ourselves for more of the pessimistic policies of police containment of the black community, which leads to the murders of 14 and 16-year-old black children? Hell no.
That's right.
We the people have to support reparations to the black community, because we can support reparations to the Jewish community for the Holocaust that was committed in Nazi Germany. We have to support black community control of the police, which includes the expulsion of the Pinellas County Sheriff's Department out of St. Petersburg, because this is their legacy. We have to support the indictment of Sheriff Bob Gaultieri, a much-hated supervisor of serial killers, and all those deputies involved in this murder of the 3 black boys, as well as those who drowned Dominique, Lanaya, and Ashanti, and who killed Laborio Felton. And we have to totally be against a black mother ever have to bury her child, as something my fierce comrade and mother of Dominique Battle, Kunde Mwamvita, had to do just last year.
That's right.
I am outraged at this murder, at the Pinellas County Sheriff's Department, at the media, and at this system. I am completely at my limit of the slander against my community, against my people, who have had to bear the brunt of these murderous policies of the city government to ensure prosperous lives for the white community. And I am sickened that 1 year later, Bob Gaultieri can murder 3 more black teenagers and then paint the picture for the world to see them as less than human, deserving death because of an alleged stolen car. That, even if it had been stolen, does not justify murder.
That's right.
It would not justify murder in the case of 3 Jewish teenagers stealing a car.
That's right.
This does not justify illegally chasing them and leading them to their deaths. There is no car more valuable than someone's life. Yet that is what we are supposed to believe when it's in the case of black children. And to assist in permeating this ideology is the Tampa Bay Times, Bay News 9, and other white media. This type of murder, this type of slander would not be possible if these children had been white, and it is never stolen if white people are the ones stealing. Because if you haven't noticed, white people, you're on stolen land, living on stolen resources, based on stolen labor and stolen lives. And if you're a white teen stealing a car, then you would be labeled as joyriding.
That's right.
Where's the times to indict the white community and to indict itself in the full participation of the oppression of the black community? What happened in Palm Harbor is what happens in St. Petersburg. It happens in St. Louis, New York City, and all over this country and around the world. And it is always the ruling class state that paints itself as the victim. It always justifies itself and goes along killing black people with impunity. This is why what we do in the city of St. Pete is so important. People are watching this city because these campaigns are providing hope to those who have experienced this sort of violence imposed on their community every day by the system. The sort of violence carried out under Kreisman, under Baker, under current District 6 City Councilman Carl Nurse, and would continue even under the forces like those of Maria Scruggs, who have continuously attacked the black community, has attacked Kunde Mwamvita, has attacked the mothers of black children who have had to endure the Pinellas County Sheriff's Department murdering their children.
That's right.
Each of my opponents has praised and promised to continue the legacy of that of Carl Nurse and the legacy of the status quo, the legacy of the Pinellas County Sheriff's Department, which is rooted in the murders of black children. So the line has been drawn, and it's drawn in the blood of Dominique, Lanaya, Ashanti, Desiree, Jimmy, and Keontae. We the campaigns to elect myself, Eritha Akile Cainion, for District 6 City Council, and Jesse Nevel for Mayor of St. Petersburg, as well as the people of this movement, completely denounce the murders of Desiree Thomas, Jimmy Goshi, and Keontae Brown by the Pinellas County Sheriff's Department, and are calling on all of those who don't allow this system and its media to speak for you, who stand in solidarity with reparations against police containment, to vote on August 29th for a future for Black children, the Black community, and the people of this city. Because the city of St. Pete, just as we can be outraged at the Holocaust against the Jewish community, have to be completely outraged against the Holocaust that is happening right here against the Black community in the city of St. Pete. If we are against the Holocaust and are for reparations to the Jewish population, we have to be against the Holocaust of the Black community and for reparations to the Black population, as we all know that is the only solution to end this oppressive system that is oppressing all of us.
That's right.
We have to demand reparations, Black community control of the police, and not one more Black life stolen by the state in the form of the police and the Pinellas County Sheriff's Department. My name is Eritha Akile Cainion. The line has been drawn. Which side will you stand on? Uhuru.
Radical times!
Radical solutions!
Uhuru, thank you, Akile. Next, we are going to have Kunde Mwamvita, the mother of Dominique Battle, who was murdered by the Pinellas County Sheriff's Department. Uhuru.
Uhuru. My name is Kunde Mwamvita, and I'm the mother of Dominique Battle. I'm standing here today as an outraged mother, not only because on March the 31st, 2016, the Pinellas County Sheriff's Department stole my daughter and her two friends, Lanaya Miller and Ashante Butler, but just a little over a year later, the Sheriff's Department has struck again, taking yet another 3 Black teen lives, and the same violent illegal chase methods they did with my girls. I stand here today in total unity and solidarity with the families of Desiree Thomas, Jimmy Goshi, and Keontae Brown, and say that I have nothing but tremendous sympathy. To have had to endure the same circumstances of losing my children to the police, and 1 year later experiencing the same pain. Because as a Black mother, I feel this. Because those kids were my kids too. They were children of the Black community, and this community stands with you. We are fighting for you. I know this feels unbearable. Not only do you have to deal with their deaths, but you have to deal with the slander of your child. You have to hear these different media outlets and the Sheriff's Department calling your children all kinds of names under the sun. I know, because my daughters were slandered. I was slandered. My people have been slandered. But I'm here today asking you to be strong and to join the struggle. There is no substitute for fighting. We have to end a system that continues to attack our children and attack our community. I want to salute the families and say that we are here. We love you, and we are fighting for you. Uhuru.
Uhuru. Everyone, please welcome Jesse Nevel, the next mayor of St. Petersburg, Florida. Uhuru.
Uhuru. I would like to begin by expressing my deepest appreciation, respect, and profound condolences to the families of Jimmy Goshi, Desiree Thomas, and Keontae Brown, and to the families of those who survived this most recent horrible assault by the Pinellas County Sheriff's Department, and who are now facing the threat of life in prison for felony murder charges. To Kunde Mwamvita, to the families of Dominique Battle, Ashanti Butler, and Lanaya Miller, to the family of Laboriel Felton, to the families of Markel McCullough, Javon Dawson, Tyrone Lewis, and Jarrell Walker, to the entire Black community here in St. Petersburg and throughout Pinellas County. My name is Jesse Nevel. I am here today not only as a candidate for mayor, standing in solidarity with Eritha Akile Cainion for District 6 City Council, but as a member of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, an organization of white people working under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party, building a movement for white reparations to the Black community. Additionally, I was born and raised in a Jewish family. I mention that because we are here today standing in front of the Florida Holocaust Museum, a building meant to preserve the history of a crime that was committed against my people by the German government in the 1930s and 1940s. It is meant to symbolize a commitment to history that this would never happen again. We are holding this press conference here because we believe that if right here in St. Petersburg, Florida, if it is right to stand up against a systematic mass murder when it was committed against the Jews, then it is right to stand up when it is happening to the Black community right here in our own city.
Yes.
And if it was right for the German government to take measures to right the wrongs committed against the Jews, then it is right for the United States to pay reparations to the Black community. And we can start that process right here in St. Petersburg, Florida. The Jewish people received billions of dollars in reparations from Germany after the Nazi Holocaust. However, reparations is more than simply a matter of monetary compensation, because there is no amount of money that could ever heal the pain that these families are now forced to carry with them for the rest of their lives. Reparations is a confession of a crime. And in a country built on the enslavement and oppression of African people, resting on land stolen from the indigenous people who faced the Holocaust right here on this continent, there has never been even so much as a formal apology from the United States for the crimes it has committed. When we say crime, we don't mean this figuratively. The crime has a legal definition. It has a legal name. It's called genocide.
Yes, right. Yes.
It is a crime of genocide that began long before the horrible events in Palm Harbor on Tuesday morning, and long before the night last year on March 31st, when the 3 teenage girls were pushed into a cemetery pond and left to drown. It began 6 centuries ago when millions of African people died on slave ships, forced to leave their homeland from Africa to be brought to the Americas in chains. It began with the slaughter of millions of African people by European and American colonizers throughout Africa, and the hundreds of millions of indigenous people who were murdered by white people. After centuries of this genocide, the word genocide did not even exist in the English language until 1946, when the General Assembly of the United Nations used the word genocide to describe what was happening to European Jews in Europe. The United Nations defined genocide, as was mentioned earlier, as the denial of the right of existence of entire human beings, such denial which shocks the conscience of mankind, and specified that it includes, in part, the forcible transfer of children from the group. How many more Black children must die in cemetery ponds or in fiery car crashes or from the gunfire of St. Pete Police or Sheriff's Department before we call it what it is, a genocide?
That's right.
And today, as we stand here in front of this structure that is meant to symbolize a commitment to always resist in the face of oppression and injustice, I ask this question to fellow Jewish people in Pinellas County. If the girls in that car on March 31st had been Jews, if the boys in that car on Tuesday in Palm Harbor had been Jews, if Mike Brown had been a Jew, or Tamir Rice, or Ayanna Jones, or Sandra Bland, if Jewish children were falling prey to the murder by police at the rate that Black children's lives are being destroyed, would the Jewish community stand by and say nothing? Would we blame their Jewish mothers and question their parenting? Would we say that those boys stole a car without evidence, and that a car is more valuable than the life of a Jewish child? Would we blame the entire Jewish community? Would we applaud the sheriff as he slanders the 3 Jewish children and circulates the mugshots of their Jewish faces on television? Would we ask, why were those Jewish boys out so late at night anyway? Those Jewish boys should have been home. I believe we know the answer. No one would dare to utter these questions, and there would be international outcry and maybe even declarations of war. If every 16 hours in this country another Jewish man, woman, or child was gunned down by police or white vigilantes. But it is not happening to Jewish children. It is happening to black children. It is happening to black families. It is happening to the black community. Unity is possible. Moving forward is possible. But reparations is necessary before we can unite. It seems so obvious, and yet when raising the question of reparations to the black community, we are faced with a barrage of questions from people like the Tampa Bay Times. Is it realistic? Who would receive these reparations? How do we know that they would be used properly? How much needs to be paid? I can only answer with another question. Where was this barrage of questions when the Jewish people were getting reparations in the billions for what happened to us in Europe? If it was the right thing to do to pay reparations to the Jews, then why would anyone question if reparations for the black community is the right thing to do? Especially when the scope of the genocide that the black community has been forced to endure is of a far grander scope than anything that happened in Europe in the 1940s. What is it about reparations to black people that is so controversial when a tourist can fly to St. Petersburg, Florida and visit a Holocaust museum for the Jews?
That's right.
They ask us, this is a majority white city. How can you talk about reparations? This is not a majority Jewish city, and yet there is a Holocaust museum for the Jewish people. Last time I checked, not a single Jew has faced a concentration camp in St. Petersburg, Florida.
That's right. That's right.
Is it only okay to talk about oppression and justice and reparations when the recipients are not black? This is the conversation we need to start having. And for Jewish people, we should have been having this conversation already, because there is a genocide exploding with raging intensity right before our very eyes. And unless we expect to go down in history as enemies of humanity no better than Hitler and the Nazis themselves, then we have a responsibility to our own history to speak up loud, shrill, and furious that in a city where an entire Holocaust museum was built for what happened to us, another Holocaust is already in full effect. Not in our name, not in our city, not one more black life. Unity through reparations. Uhuru.
Unity through
Reparations!
Uhuru. Next, we're going to have Jesse Nevel come and salute the families. Uhuru.
Uhuru. Touch one.
Touch all!
Touch one.
Touch all!
Uhuru. Like Leah said, my name is Jesse Nevel, and I'm the Director of Recruitment and Membership for the African People's Socialist Party. And I just first wanted to say that I found out about the Uhuru movement through watching an interview of Chairman Amalia Shatella on Ferguson defending Mike Brown. And even though I heard a lot of other people talking and defending Mike Brown, it was not until I heard Chairman Amalia Shatella break down this oppressive social system that we live in that I really understood that attacking Mike Brown, even though he wasn't related to me, was like attacking a brother of mine. And that we had to do something to fight against the social system, and that we can win against this system.
That's right.
So I first want to salute these families who have felt the brunt of these genocidal cops who have killed their children. I want the families to know that they can rest a little easier knowing that the Uhuru movement has their back 100% and will defend your children no matter what. We will defend them against the lies of Pinellas County Sheriff's Department. We will defend them against the slander of sellout black leaders. We will defend them against the criminalization by white nationalists online and in person. We will defend them against these candidates that are justifying their deaths. We know that the parents are being manipulated to indict their own children. We know about these sleazy lawyers telling you not to blame the police. We know about these white liberal organizations that are telling you not to speak your truth. I know this personally because I've seen this firsthand with my comrade Kunde Mwamvita. I have seen her in meetings surrounded by people who have flown in from New York City, from DC, and from Chicago to try to make her sell out her interests and fight for her babies. And I have seen Kunde fight fiercely against them and disunite with them and unite with the African poor and working class for a fight for self-determination and reparations. And it has been a year now since I saw Kunde make that fierce struggle and divide against the status quo. And I want to say, look where Kunde is now, and look where the mothers who were forced and manipulated to make the other decision. Look where what Kunde has built now, from Black Power 96.3 to the African People's Education Defense Fund, to the beautiful and amazing marketplace that they created, from volunteering and building Uhuru Foods and Pies, and continuing to fight for not only her daughter, not only the other two girls, but for all African children. Their names are known worldwide because Kunde Mwamvita made the right decision. Akile and Jesse are the only candidates who have even said the names of black children who have been slain by the police.
That's right.
They are the only candidates that have marched for our children. They are the only candidates that have organized this community for our children. They are the only candidates that have built institutions for our children. They are the only candidates that are fighting this system for our children. And let me be very clear. These are the only candidates that can save our children.
That's right.
If we let any other candidate win, our children will be the ones who really lose on August 29th. So to the families of these three boys, we are all looking forward to meeting with you later today. We look forward to continuing this blow against this oppressive system because we all understand the status quo
Must go!
The status quo
Must go!
Touch one!
Touch all!
Touch one!
Touch all!
We are winning!
We are winning!
Uhuru!
Uhuru!
Uhuru. I'd just like to thank and appreciate all the speakers. All right. I'd just like to thank and appreciate all the speakers who have came up and said what they needed to say. And now we're going to take this time to open it up for any questions we may have from the media. So it's open. And it'll be taken by the candidates and Gazi Koza.
Volunteer of Black Power 96, I have a question for Mayor candidate Jesse. As mayor, would you reverse the actions of Rick Baker during his administration that allowed Pinellas sheriffs back into St. Pete, resulting in the first killing of a black person in 8 years?
The question was, if elected, would I reverse the policy of Rick Baker, who, when he came into office, he undid the policy that was in place at the time, which prohibited the Pinellas County Sheriff's Department from operating within the city of St. Petersburg, and that led to an 8-year stretch where no black people were killed by the police in the city. And the answer is yes, absolutely. We would kick out the Sheriff's Department from the city of St. Petersburg and support black community control of the police in the hands of the black community.
justice for the 3 black girls drowned and now the 3 black boys that died in a crash after being chased by the same sheriff's department. What can be done to stop this? You led your campaign for justice for the 3 black girls that are drowned and now the 3 black boys that have died in the car crash after being chased by the same exact sheriff's department. What can be done to stop this?
I appreciate the question, and it was, as you have led the campaign for Just for the 3 drowned black girls, and now in the event of 3 more black children being killed by the Pinellas County Sheriff's Department, what can we do to stop this? And one, you know, it's called Just for the 3 drowned black girls, but it's a campaign that encompasses the understanding that it's a social system that killed Dominique, Lanai, and Ashanti, and that we have to fight for all African children in order to end this type of police violence and police murder within the city of St. Pete and throughout the country and around the world. And it's an international campaign that spans from, you know, this city and all around the world. And in the case of the 3 boys, this is something that'll have to be waged and understood as well. A whole political campaign has to be waged to change and combat this narrative that has been put out around these 3 boys. And also, as Jesse, who's running for mayor, has said, black community control of the police and the expulsion of the Pinellas County Sheriff's Department out of the city of St. Pete is the way we end the murders here in the city of St. Pete. But to overturn this entire system is the way to end the police murder of black children everywhere.
Uhuru, thank you for all the questions. And I'd just like to thank everybody for coming out to this press conference and appreciate you all and really appreciate these candidates and everybody who came up to speak. Touch one!
Touch all!
Touch one!
Touch all!
Uhuru.